Welcome to Booked, where two guys tell you about the books they're reading. I'm Livius Nedden.
And I'm Rob Olson. This episode, we're going to be doing an interview with Josh Malerman. We recently did a review of his latest book, Malorie. And if you go back through the years of our podcast, we've reviewed pretty much everything I'm about to read you in his bio. So, Josh Malerman is a New York Times bestselling author and one of two singer-songwriters for the rock band The High Strung. His debut novel, Bird Box, is the inspiration for the hit Netflix film of the same name. His other novels include Unburied Carol, Black Mad Wheel, and Inspection. Malerman lives in Michigan with his fiancée, the artist-musician Allison Lako.
And as a bonus, after this wonderful interview, we've already done the interview, so I can tell you it's fantastic. But after that, we're continuing our newest series, which is spoiler interviews. We really need a name for it, Rob. This is terrible. But we did go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/booked, where subscribers of any amount can hear an interview that is filled with spoilers about Malorie. And when I say interview, I'll be honest, it's probably 20 minutes, 5-6 questions with some follow-ups. But we also talk about some other pretty wild stuff that I didn't necessarily think was going to come up. So if you're interested, you'll want to head over there, make a donation of at least $1 a month, and you can hear that alongside our Zoya Stage spoiler interview nameless thing that we just did a few days ago.
That's right. So be sure to check that out on Patreon. But first, here is our interview with Josh.
Hey, Josh, thanks so much for coming on and talking to us a little bit about Malorie. And happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you. Typically on my birthday, it's a crazy bash around here. I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm not the shy guy, and I'm a Leo, and all my band friends and everyone. I've had like blackout birthdays like every other year, pretty much. And so, and Alice and I just recently had moved into this house, and I was so excited, like, oh my God, this is gonna be nuts, because there's a yard and there's a deck, but nope, not this year. It was just Alice and I alone. But I will say this real fast. You're like, wow, this guy's, all I said was happy birthday and he can't shut up. but the night before my birthday was the last, what would you call it, I guess, like event of like the press junket that led up to Malorie coming out, led up to the release. And that was an event with Joe Hill. Live, all that kind of stuff. And the second that one was done, I was like, oh my gosh, I just did a lot of interviews for Malorie. I went in the other room and had like 6, 7, 8 whiskey and cokes, got like bombed by myself. So I woke up on my birthday feeling like kind of wanting to be alone anyway. So I was kind of like a total mess.
Wow.
Yes. Thank you for saying happy birthday.
I guess, and also congratulations on the release of Malorie. It's out in the world now. You can't take it back.
No, I sure can't. I'm holding her right now. I hold Malorie during any interviews I do just for good luck.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
I do
cool.
that with every book. So every time we've ever talked, I've been actually like holding Inspection, yeah, that's what I like to do that.
That's, hey, if it works. So far, it seems like it's probably working for you.
This guy's weird.
This is weird superstition. Well, sports people do it all the time. Like, I got to wear a certain hat or something.
Totally like that. It is. It really is. It is. It's like, well, like, hold on, honey. I gotta keep the mitt in my just right here while the game's on. That's like exactly what I'm doing right now.
Well, since you're holding on to it, and we just did a review of it, we like to give the author the opportunity to give it to the listeners in their own words. So do you want to do a quick remind us what Malorie's about?
Yeah, sure. Essentially, the bulk of the book takes place 12 years after the end of Bird Box. There's a brief moment about 2 years after, but the bulk of it's 12 years after. And what that means is Malorie is no longer contending with creatures. She is also contending with teenagers. Her kids are now both 16. And like most events in life, or like a lot of events in life, this story really starts with a knock at the door, a door that Malorie would never open because she is as hardcore as ever about being safe. which is a bizarre thing to be hard. It's like she's hardcore about not being hardcore or something. You know what I mean? Just this like piece of. Well, we'll get to that in a second because I actually have thoughts about how happy I am that this is not Terminator 2 or Sarah Connor or Aliens. You know, in terms of sequels. But anyway, so and the other side of that door is someone who claims to be with a census. If you can imagine what job that might be in the Bird Box world. I'd almost actually like to follow that guy for a whole book, to be honest with you, because gosh, that could be like a book of short stories, right? Like all the crazy stuff that guy must encounter taking numbers. Anyway, in his stack of papers, on his list of survivors are two names that are very important to Malorie and who she had thought were dead. And so begins like her, debating whether or not to go see if those people are alive and if those names are even who she hopes they are and that whole thing. So yeah, it starts with the census guy arriving and it's important to note that like really no progress has been made in like society, not much. And I was very aware of that while writing it. There's no mention of the government in this book, successes or failures. There's no military. It's not like suddenly Malorie's an ass kicker with like a rifle on each arm. It's not like she's like a creature killer with like traps on each arm. You know what I mean? So in a way, it's very similar to Bird Box, which I love about it because I almost picture them as two mirrors. And when you put mirrors up to each other, you create infinity. And that is what the monster is in Bird Box. So I have a certain affinity for the fact that Malorie feels like Bird Box. And that would be I guess if I was just telling a total stranger about it, that's how I described it.
I think you pretty well captured it there. When you said she's dealing with teenagers, all I could think of is I'm glad TikTok didn't survive the mild apocalypse in Bird Box, because imagine how much harder Malorie's life would have been if social media was present for her teenagers too. So. Oh
my God! Yeah. Oh no, that's not even funny.
Yep. So I'm going to start off with a maybe an odd question. So I couldn't help, and I think I speak for Rob too, but reading Malorie could not help but picturing Sandra Bullock the entire time. Did you have this issue when you were writing the book after seeing her do, terrific performance as Malorie in the Bird Box movie?
A little bit. There were, it's Malorie. I have like a handful of characters that are, and I'm sure every author must have this, that are more dear to their heart, maybe, or something. Smoke from Unburied Carol is like that to me. Kay from Inspection is like that to me. And Walter Camp in Goblin is like that to me. And Malorie is like that to me. She's always been like super special to me. So, and probably even the most so. So for me, I would never be able to get rid of my initial idea of her. I was alone with her from 2006 till when the movie came out, almost 2019. It was the very end of 2018. So I was alone with Malorie for like, with that image of Malorie for like, my God, like 12, 13 years or something. So, but that would be one side of the scale. But one way to combat a 13-year image is to put like a Hollywood icon in place of her on a movie screen, and that movie does extremely well. And I've seen the movie 7 times and all that. And I met, as you know, Sandra Bullock and all this. So yeah, man, even me who knows Malorie as well as anybody possibly could, even I was like, oh, hi Sandra Bullock. Like while I'm writing it, all of a sudden she's, and I almost feel like it was like maybe, what's the right way of saying this? Like certain scenes felt like Sandra Bullock and certain scenes felt more like Malorie that I knew all that time.
That makes sense. I could see that. I feel like when I was reading it, I'm pretty close to what Livia said as far as imagining her, but it was more like if like there was an animated drawing of her as opposed to an actual like real life film, like video of her or whatever. Like, so the image was not 100% her in my mind.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Almost like a graphic novel or something?
Yeah, like someone drew Sandra Bullock and that's what Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. The reason that's striking a chord with me is that what you just said could just sound like a bizarre thing, right?
Yeah.
But I almost feel like I had the same experience. That it
Okay.
would come almost in like stills versus like her actually like I don't know that I pictured like Sandra Bullock wearing what she wore in the movie, like walking up the road,
Right.
stepping on a train. Like I don't know if I saw it that way, but there would be moments of seeing her maybe sitting in a dining car,
Yeah.
or or going to see Ron Handy in the gas station. Like so it'd almost be like panels. Yeah, that's weird that you said that.
And then the other thing, actually, this just occurred to me. I forgot. We talked about it when we posted our review of the book. In scenes where it was someone who was blindfolded, I didn't see what was being described. I saw like the darkness, in my imagination. So, but I feel Olivia said that he actually like imagined what was happening for real.
But that's cool. Yeah, when I did that stuff, I would I usually picture the darkness myself actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what a creative writer.
But writing it, you had to describe it, so you knew what it looked like.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I'm going to bring up something that happened early in the book, and it's just it doesn't really spoil anything, but it's when they're still at the school for the blind, and maybe it does spoil. You can tell me if it spoils stuff. Essentially, the place goes nuts because obviously people see creatures, and one of the crazy parts that I think was one of the most interesting like stakes raisers of the story was one of the people who had gone mad was blind, and so that kicked off like just enormous extra amounts of paranoia and safety kind of precautions for Malorie. So for me, it was brilliant, but I'm just wondering what gave you that idea?
I can almost imagine an entire book of Mallory just interrogating a blind person who had gone mad, right?
Yeah. Yes.
In fact, now that I'm talking about that, I almost want to write that right now, and maybe I will. But I can almost, just like how did this happen to you? Have you always you would need a third character, or maybe not, but I think you would need a third character, right? To be like, how did this happen to her? Like, what was she like before? Is this old age? Did she hit her head? Like, what happened to this person to drive them mad? Like, what is happening here? And there's something about, I wanted to, what's the right phrase? Like, make or increase Mallory's paranoia, but also increase her, like, it's justified. Like her lording, there's no question that her lording over the kids in Bird Box, there's just no question it's justified. And I mean, you could argue the same with Mallory, but at the same time, that's a long time in this new world now. 17 years. We've been in this pandemic for 4.5 months,
Yeah.
and all of us are like, or half the country's like, fuck it, right? So 17 years. Like, I don't know if she would be exactly the same. So that was just one of the ways of like, okay, now maybe Mallory's worried, God, I'm worried about spoilers right now. But maybe Mallory would be concerned that they can get to you in more ways than just sight. And what's the way to do that? Well, that making a blind person go mad. I really may write that other story that I was just talking about, because that just sounds so awesome. Like a one act story or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's probably a good segue into this next question. So there were, I didn't count, but there had to be at least 20 or 25 new ideas that were introduced. So some of them were processes, some of them were, I guess I could say it, abilities, because we talked about it in the review, right? So kids who grew up with blindfolds on all the time have heightened hearing, which makes perfect sense because this is something that we know about people who lose their sight or are deprived of sight their entire life. How hard and maybe how fun was it to come up with how much people's, abilities and like the processes that have changed over, 16 years with the creatures?
Do you mean what's it called, like the failed experiments and all that stuff too, or no?
Yes. Yep. All of it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. that was like maybe the most fun thing of the whole book for me, because in a way, I that's another thing I would like to write. God, my God, this is the third novel I want to write now out of this conversation.
There will be more.
Just the census papers. I would love to read just the census papers, and to read these long accounts of just like, they tried this. My favorite one, that's I don't think this is a spoiler, but later on in the book, the one where they tie that woman to the tree, because they're like, what happens if that initial impulse to go mad is like, you can't do anything about it. You can't hurt yourself.
Right.
You can't hurt anyone else, right? How long will that urge to do something last? Because in Bird Box, it's always instantaneous, really, pretty much. So if you had someone completely like tied to a tree or a chain or whatever, like how long? And then I don't want to spoil what happens in that moment, but that kind of like thinking, it was almost like, for me, I was able to what's the right phrase? Like, it was almost like coming up with a bunch of little different book ideas, like the people that try to look at the creatures underwater. That's freaky. I mean, like, if you like, I don't know about you guys, but that even sounds scarier than just opening my eyes outside. Like, okay, we think there's one in the water, Tommy. We're going to need you to go in there, go under, and open your eyes. Do it for the cause. Maybe the water, we can see him through water, And it's like, oh, I'm on it, dude, And so it's like, that has its own fun short story. So, yeah, that whole thing was, like, super exciting for me. In fact, to be honest with you, I would have liked to even written more of that. And that, for some reason, sometimes when you're done with a book and you feel like you got like it's almost like a song, like where you played it well and you did it and you're like, man, if we had just done that chorus one more time, that would be pretty sweet. And then your bandmate's like, no, it's good how it is. It's like, you don't want to overdo it. You want more, that kind of thing. And I think that aspect of this book, I would have liked to done even a little bit more.
Well, it's come up a couple of times, so I want to acknowledge that we agree that the census taker idea is just fertile with opportunity. And in the review, I think we agreed that was probably one of the most interesting or potentially interesting characters in the book, and just a brilliant idea. So we had a question about, like, do you foresee other stories in this world prepared? And one of the things I wrote was census taker. So yeah. So
now I used to, let me look at the clock, as of 22 minutes ago, I used to say I have one other idea. Now I have two. And then I'll start with the second one, is that it's a book about a census taker in this world, the census taker in this world, who witnesses the interrogation of a blind person that went mad.
Oh, yeah.
Badass. Now, there you go. Right? Okay, so now I think we just literally together, I think we just came up with a new Bird Box story if I ever want to write it. One that I absolutely love, and God, I love this freaking idea, is that let's say it was Bird Box 3. My God, that's the worst title ever. But Bird Box 3, and it opens with a bunch of people eating in a diner, no blindfolds, whatever, and they're all like talking and da 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 da, and music's playing and this, and then like an older woman walks by on the sidewalk or crosses the street with a blindfold, and then other people are just walking, and then maybe an older man walks by, an older couple with a blindfold, and you can even call the book "They're Gone," right? But if you're reading that book, that eventually shit's gonna hit the fan, right? So that's like a ticking time bomb. Every moment in that diner, the door opens. Jenny looks over her shoulder. Oh, you're like, oh, what you? Nope, no, it's just somebody entering the diner. Tommy, not Tom. Jonathan, the little kid screams or something. Like, oh my God, what's going on? Okay, no, he just screaming at his sister. And then every moment from the diner, the walk home, the drive somewhere, every moment you're like, Jesus Christ, this is going to happen right now. It's like you can maintain that tension of they're gone, that like false belief of they're gone for like 100 pages. And that's like exciting as hell to me, because now that's almost like the meta. See, Bird Box in a weird way to me has always been a little bit meta horror, right? Because you're always scared of what you see. right? Or, the monster that you see in the room. And here's a book about you're scared of, it's like the inverse. It's like the negative of that or something. Now let's go one step further. Let's write a horror novel where they're like, everyone, like there is no monster. And the whole time you're afraid.
That would be great. Well,
Yeah,
one of the,
that would be badass, right?
that was one of the things that, obviously the impression with Bird Box especially was that you were tense the whole time. So knowing what you know and having that endless anticipation would be pretty torturous.
Like torturous. I almost like have a fantasy of they never show up. Like you just maintain that for 300 pages.
Listen,
like, the end. And people
Josh,
are like, what the fuck was that?
yeah, the Goodreads reviews would be the Goodreads reviews would be interesting to say the least if you went that route.
The real monster was the author.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's an interesting. It's definitely a time bomb scenario, like just ticking away, But I love that both those ideas. So maybe both of those are coming. The beauty of the census taker is that could be a book of short stories, and like I don't know, and they don't all have to involve creatures. You know what I mean? Like
right.
Sometimes when I think of like It, right? It is, if you really break it down, can be seen as a collection of short stories. There's each of their encounter with Pennywise as a kid, each of their encounter with Pennywise as an adult, Mike's history, right? The standoff as a group as a kid, the standoff, there really is like a collection of short stories, all with the same antagonist. And that could be something similar to that could be done with that census taker, where there's in every story, it's the hovering, it's not Pennywise, it's the creatures of Bird Box. They're there somewhere, but really under that umbrella, and certain ones would be encounters, but under that umbrella is how people, are behaving, reacting, living under that umbrella. And they can be so freaking different from each other. You could meet, you could have all various like age groups, philosophies. Dude, it doesn't even have to happen just in America. Although if I was going to go to the census, I'd stick to one place. But you know what I mean? There's something interesting about that. Like to have like that combination of that fly on the wall narrator, and that could be our census taker. Combine that with that sort of Trojan horse group of short stories, which is like It, set in this Bird Box world. That to me is an exciting book.
For sure. And I mean, I think I want to go back to something you said about the different things that people would try, like looking at them underwater. Like when I hear things like that, I think back to like how we have anything. So I imagine there's a bunch of dudes that tried to fly that we've never heard of.
Yes.
Because they were like on their own and they failed spectacularly. Or at some point, someone was like, hey, what if we dry up this plant, roll it in another plant, then light it on fire and inhale the smoke? Like that had to go wrong for quite a few people.
Oh, yeah,
before, you know what I mean? So there's always, humans are always going to try things. And sometimes not even out of necessity, right? So no one needed to smoke a plant. It's arguable if someone needed to fly, but like trying to figure out a life in which you can't walk around outside with vision would be even more of an imperative to try a variety of different things. So I found all the failures to be very, very genuine because that's just human nature, right?
I love what you're saying too, because you can almost even call the book something like not Early Man, but like something that has to do something that harkens back to that or something. And it's all the like trial and error, and it's like all haunted by the same ghost in a strange way, There's just so many. Oh my God, that is just so right. This is really, I'm working on a new book now, and this conversation is actually making me want to write the book we're talking about. I always say that kind of thing to Allison too. I'll be like, there had to be like somebody that sat in the first chair, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like somebody first said you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Like that's a cliche now, but at one point in time, someone said that first. Mm-hmm. That's like a hit. That's more of a hit than like a Beatles song.
Yeah, and like just the bizarre like scientific method that you would have to, manifest in a post-apocalyptic world where you can't trust your eyesight, there's a lot of potential to that for sure.
Yeah. So I love. Okay, so I'm just gonna have to. It's almost like we're taking like a dictaphone right now of ideas. Because like I'm gonna listen to this later and be like, oh shit, I gotta write that now. But but then that's okay. That's a whole different world because Bird Box, the book, well, no, actually the movie too, like created like a sort of I don't want to say a standard or something, but it seems like it was a fairly big to do Malorie coming out, right? So the other book I'm writing right now, I have no idea. There's no pressure, no plan, no nothing for that. If I sat down and wrote another Bird Box book, but then so what? Just do it just to do it anyway. Who gives a shit? Like that would be kind of awesome to say, like, down the road, if someone's like, hey, have you ever considered another one? I was like, oh yeah, no, I wrote another one.
but you don't get to read it. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it. I was booked one night, and it's like 3 other novels actually, man.
This is a completely unrelated follow-up, I guess. I don't even know how to say this. How quickly do you write? I mean, do you type like a ridiculous amount? Because the amount of stuff you're putting out. So there's 2 ways I can think about this, right? Either you're writing 18 hours a day, or you write so quickly that you're writing like 3 or 4 hours a day. But I mean, just what's been published in the last 6 or 7 years since we've known of you. Plus, I understand that you have a backlog of things you've written, and let's not forget about things you've rewritten completely that we've discussed previously on the podcast. Like, how quickly do you churn these out?
Well, so Alice and I moved into this house on July 14th of 2019, and now it is almost August, and I'm working on the 4th novel here. But while here, I also rewrote Malorie in a big way. I did Carpenter's Farm live, so that means I rewrote that, like wrote a chapter, rewrote it. But I wouldn't count that as an intensive rewrite, but it was rewritten. I wrote a novella recently for Audible. I wrote like some short stories. So in a year, I mean, it's hard to say because sometimes it comes in like, oh my God, just such glorious bursts, guys. That sounded weird and wrong what I just said, but sometimes it comes in like such like just like manic, exciting seasons or stretches of time, that kind of thing. But other times I intentionally, if I know the book's going to be very long, then I intentionally do less per day to stay so that I don't burn out. So right. Like, okay, I wrote a book. It's 1,100 pages. It's across the desk from me. And that one, I knew from the start, I'm like, dude, you can come out running on this one, but when you get to page, like, if you get to 300 pages in a month, you are going to run out of gas, and you're going to have so far to go, So instead, I did, like, what was it? I think it was about 100 pages a month instead. So I did that's exactly right. I chopped, like, my normal work rate to, like, to a third of it. And it was grueling for me because I would finish the day's work and be like, oh my God, like, I'm like, what am I going to do now? Like, I want to go. And it's like, listen, you gotta, same thing with like running. I don't know if you guys run or whatever. I used to here and there, but like, if you like run 10 miles today, you're probably not running tomorrow. But if you run 1 or 2 today, you're probably going to run tomorrow. I mean, it's that simple. And it's the same exact thing. So the rate like changes depending on like the project and how, I've gone out like, Unburied Carol was written in 15 days. That was, woo, that nice. Was fire. That was, I can't even explain what that one felt like, man. That was absolute fire. And Bird Box, the rough draft, was like 26 days. Wendy, my first book, was 28 days. But then there's other ones that 3-4 months. So it really is project to project, which I kind of like because like, I don't really know exactly what it's going to be like going into it. I don't even know at what time of day it's going to happen, but it seems to turn out where it's uniform per book, right? So Bird Box was written all between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. During October of '06. But the book Wendy was written between midnight and 4 in the morning in December of '04, but always in those hours. So each book does seem to it just has like its own like measure to it or something.
That's interesting. So one of the things that I like that you did on this topic was in Malorie, you included an explanation of being prolific, and kind of talking about the fact, like the exact fact that you produce a lot and what that means, which it was nice to see you acknowledge that, because when you get someone who produces so much content, people talk about it. Like it's one of those attributes that it's easy to be a conversation piece. Stephen Graham Jones is an amazing example of that as well. So I like the fact that you personalized the idea of like why you just produce as much as you do. That was when I saw that, I was like, this makes total sense. Later on, I know that you did Max Booth's podcast, and that came up too. So it's nice that the people who are prolific kind of like are sharing what it's like to be, or why the inspiration comes how it does and stuff.
Well, I think it's an afterward where, or maybe not, where I was ashamed of it for a while, and it's hard to explain like why that is, but like, and I don't want to just like repeat the afterward, but whatever. If I do, sorry. But like, there's a sense of like, when especially if you come from like a more like literary group of friends, which I do, meaning they're not reading genre, that kind of thing, you know what I mean? Right. And so there's a sense of like, whoa, Josh, well, you just wrote a book like last month. What do you mean you're writing another one? You start to look, you're like, that's not how Cheever did it. No, that's not how Carol did it, man. That kind of thing. And then you're like, I can't stop moving, But anyway, so there have been times in my life where I almost like downplayed it, where I'd be at a party and someone, with like whatever, like that kind of set, I guess you'd say, and they'd be like, oh, you write, and I'm like, oh yeah, and they're like, oh, like you've written novels? I've written like a couple, and there's like 15 at home, And it's like, but then at some point, it was just so blatantly, like I don't remember the exact moment. I know that it has to do with Guided by Voices and Stephen King and even Agatha Christie, although she's a hard one for me to fit into that group, and I don't know why. Even though she wrote more than everyone else we're even going to talk about, I don't know what it is about her. Hers almost feels like installments to me, even though she's brilliant. She's an absolute genius. Let's just count her. Forget it. Let's count her. So Agatha Christie, right? I don't need to resist. Why am I resisting Agatha Christie into the Olympic Club? The fuck, man. So okay, Agatha, you're in, and then I started to like appreciate them in like this way where it was like I started to like realize, wait, this is one of the things I love about them. Like, where is this to be ashamed of? And then that led to, I would start to tell people, like, they'd be like, where do I start with Guided by Voices? And I'd be like, you just start in the middle and go in either direction. It doesn't matter. Start at the end and go back, but you don't have to go in order. Whatever. This is an entire like life documented here. So where are you gonna start? In a biography, I guess, or not in a biography, but like with a person, right?
Right.
So like Agatha Christie, well, see, maybe that's what it is. You don't get the sense that Agatha Christie documented her life. You don't, but with Stephen King, you do. With Robert Pollard, you do. I'm not sure you get that with Hitchcock, but there's something. You definitely see like insane growth, because he starts in the silent era, for crying out loud, and ends up, 73 is his last movie or something, right? So I think at some point I was like, wait a minute, this is not something to be ashamed of. That doesn't mean you have to like walk into the first, Starbucks, you walk into, hello, I write endlessly, but I stopped being like ashamed of it, and now I'm proud of it.
Yeah, and honestly, like from my perspective, having reviewed books for a decade now, and in the genre that we generally talk about, horror comes up a lot, and obviously I mentioned Stephen Graham Jones before. There's almost like an unspoken stigma, like the joke would be like, oh, he probably wrote a book while we were talking about this, and
well, we did actually.
Right. We did. And that like a lot of that is like admiration for the ability to do that, but some of it is like, why can't I write that much, like, so I feel like the fact that people are putting a positive spin on being prolific is absolutely a good thing to do.
Yeah, same here. It's a funny thing because it's like, to like someone who has no idea what we're talking about, they'd be like, what are you talking about? Prolifics were marginalized for a while, but yes, it was like considered like super markety to like write a lot,
Right.
like, oh, he's not writing, he's typing, that whole thing,
I did some really, really loose math, kind of jotting down some numbers that you threw out. So for anybody who's listening, if you want to break down what sounds daunting, it sounds like Bird Box, its first draft, was written at about a clip of 12 pages per day and 3 to 4 pages per hour, which to me sounds a lot less daunting than I wrote Bird Box in a month. So I think that's a good, a good point to make for people who are listening going, well, I could never crank out a book even over 6 months. Like over 6 months, that math would be, you could do half a page a day and basically get there.
Dude, absolutely what you're saying right now. But then, okay, also this though. Bird Box, the rough draft was twice as long though, almost.
Oh, okay. Never. All right. So double my math on that. But
I did 4,300 words a day on Bird Box.
Wow.
So what is that? How many pages? Geez, wow. That sounds nuts. Let's say it's 15, 16, something like that, 14, whatever, right? Yeah, it's close to what you said then, actually.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
So it'd be like 24, I think, like 22 to 24 pages a day.
No. I'd say that it was like, let's say it was 16. I think it was 16.
Okay.
So then, if you're working 3.5, so let's just say 4 to make it easier. Yeah, it's close to what you said actually. About 4 pages. Let's say a little over 4 pages an hour. But that's one of the craziest clips I've ever gone at. So the usual thing, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it is. It is about, like 3. I think 3 an hour, something like that. And then but if you oh my God, I got a great friend here in town, Jeff, who's been writing in the music scene forever, and he's phenomenal, and he's writing a novel. And we had a talk about it, and it was like, if you could do 500 words a day, that kind of thing, then you're not going to believe how quickly these add up, man. And it's honestly, guys, it feels like him and I just started talking about this. I know we're on lockdown, so time's a little warped, but it feels like we just started talking about this, and he wrote me today at 36,000 words. I'm like, what? Holy shit. It's working.
Nice.
Just doing about 500 a day. I think it's 600 actually. 600 a day. And here he is at 36,000 words. That's half of Malorie. And again, we were he's been just working on it for a couple months. So when you start to look at that, let's say Jeff did that every single day. In fact, here, I'm going to do this. Let's say Jeff wrote, let's see, everyone in class, let's say Jeff writes words a day for 365 days. Okay. That's 219,000 words a year. That's crazy, dude. Now, divide that by one Malorie, which is 72,000. That's 3 novels a year if he writes 600 words a day.
One of the beautiful things is Carpenter's Farm, which I know this was last time we had you on. You were kind of in the middle of Carpenter's Farm, and I don't know that anything ever really brought it to light for me, because you did that, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but over a span of a very short time, releasing a couple chapters a couple times a week, and a fully fledged, short novel length story appeared before our eyes as you were doing it. And it again, I very much enjoyed it. I'm not slighting it, but it started thinking man, it doesn't seem like it's all that hard. It seems more daunting then but the way you released it really, I think, brought to light for me at least, I'm assuming for other people, it's not as daunting as you first think.
No, absolutely. No, but Carpenter's Farm is longer than Malorie.
There you go.
Is it really?
It's 76,000 words, and Malorie is, I think, 72.
Holy shit. I guess that's the difference between reading a little bit every other day versus what I normally do, which is 5 days to finish the next book we're reviewing. Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah, is that about what you do? Do you like kind of give yourself 5 days to finish reading like a novel? Is that kind of how you do it?
Yes.
That's what Livius does.
That's my plan. Rob gives himself the afternoon before we do the review. I feel like I know that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, I usually try to, I'll take a book and I'll say, look, I read about a page a minute, so the book is 300 pages. I'm going to need 5 hours. I'm going to spend an hour a day. And then usually my midweek day off of work, I'll do whatever catching up I need to or getting a little bit ahead of it. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I like that. That's something that because of the lockdown, I've been on a tear. I've read 49 already, and that for me that is like so much. Like last year I only read like 22 or something or whatever it was. Like I know that sounds really small, but in the circles we run in. But for me this lockdown's been unbelievable. But it is opening my eyes to that. Okay, then you could transfer that to reading if you read 300. If you read 30 pages a day or 40 pages a day, that kind of thing. And if you, like you said, it takes you about a minute, so you read for 1 hour a day, my God, you're reading like 60, 70 books a year or something.
Yeah, I've done that breakdown for people when they say, how do you read so much? Usually I say, if you read 20 pages a day, that's 25 books a year.
Right.
So it's not hard. It's just a matter of just electing to make the effort.
That exact thing. And see, by the way, we have entered the prolific zone now. We really, like how we're talking. This is like I'm very comfortable in this room we're in right now. Like it's like when you break these things down, it's all the same, and it's the same thing for like a runner. Oh, did you run 12? You can't run 12 miles. Yeah, you can if you do 1 and then 1.5 and work your way running every day. You get there, and it's like it's just I just want to like. Anyone that's ever struggling to write a book or get started, there's like a couple things that I think hold them back. One is, as you say, the daunting like size of a novel. Well, we're picking that apart right now in this talk. And the other one is like, am I good enough or not? And that has to be just like obliterated, like just bomb the hell out of that question. Just don't even ask that question. So then it's like you just want to like touch that person on the shoulder and be like, dude, the numbers are going to add up. Just do a little bit every day. I'm not even, I know it sounds a little hippie-ish or something, but I'm not fucking around. You do a little bit every day. 3 months from now, you're going to have like half a novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we touched on it in the last time we talked too, where like I had a buddy who was talking about how everything he writes, he feels like he's just writing garbage. And I'm like, write the garbage, because then you can go back and fix the garbage later. So that takes away another obstacle of like, you don't have to do it perfect. You just do it and then make it better or whatever.
Yep. That's exactly that's the whole thing. It's like if ever had like if ever I got paid to do like a writing conference, I would just walk in and just say what you just said and walk out.
You're like, you guys have another 50 minutes of time to do whatever you want because
now you have Hey,
They can write 3 pages.
You're leaving. We got you for another hour. Well, now you have an hour. Get started.
That would be the ballsiest thing to ever do if you were doing that, like a live seminar. I would just applaud. That'd be great.
Dude, I got a strange invite the other day. This is like the strangest invite I've got for like a public speaking or something, where an old friend wrote, hey, there's this something club, and we have like one like public speaker a year, and they're like it takes place in this like it was like this nice place, I don't know where, like the Detroit Yacht Club. No, not that nice, something whatever, but it was like everyone there just gets like bombed out of their minds, and they're super like randy and loud, but it's still like an intellectuals like lecture kind of thing, and the guy's like, I think this is right up your alley, and I'm like, dude, that sounds fucking terrifying. Wait, so I'm supposed to go. Wait, hold on. So I'm supposed to go like intentionally give like a speech or a talk on writing to a room of people that are like heckling, rowdy, randy,
right?
their ideas. I'm like, I don't know if I'm made for that or not, man. But now don't you want me to kind of go do it?
Well, that's the one where you like find out that like they're all secretly cannibals or something. Like,
Yeah, no shit, right?
yeah.
I mean, that's the start of like we've read enough books not to take that, right? Yeah, I think everyone is like, yeah, don't give that speech, dude.
All right. Transitioning away a little bit, I guess, and I don't even know if this is something you're able to talk about or if there's anything to talk about here, but is there interest in a Mallory movie after the success of Bird Box?
Yes, all I can say is, which is literally all I know, is that development has begun. They let us know that they want to do it. They told us they love the book and that they want to do it, and they have the rights to do it, whether I had written Mallory or not. They have the rights to make people whenever they want.
Huh.
And they wrote that they love Mallory and that they want to do it. And so I had heard something about them looking for screenwriters and like a similar process to the way they did with Bird Box, and that's all I know so far.
All right, and this is going to be a real hard transition. So this is a little bit of a two-part thing. I noticed on, I think it was Facebook, that for your birthday, I'm assuming, you received a pretty cool Alice Cooper, maybe hand-drawn, hand-painted portrait.
Yeah.
Are you a fan? Are you a big Alice Cooper fan?
Yeah.
So, okay. So I don't, and we can go into that. But my question, I saw that and I was thinking, let's see. Josh writes by and large horror, and he's a musician. And Alice Cooper's a musician whose basic genre, or at least his best stuff, in my opinion, is all horror themed. So what do you think about these two kind of seemingly unrelated types of entertainment coming together, like horror stories and music?
Oh man, it's something I've thought of like a lot over time, and there's only a few. What's that one dude? God, I really wish I could remember his name right now. Screaming Lord Sutch, maybe that's who I'm thinking of. Like, there's a guy in like the '60s who like was like, it's freaky, and then, man, what is that guy's name? Anyway, Alice Cooper's probably like the apex of what we're talking about, right? Or the Misfits, or but no, I'd say Alice Cooper. But when you listen to his stuff. Like, and I'm not even talking about just the hits. And I know he's got a ton of weird, like creepy stuff, like fun. But it's really not like, it's not like super dark. Like when I was a kid, I assumed Alice Cooper was like so scary. Like the music would be scary. Like, no, dude, they're accessible, fun songs. Mm-hmm. It's a very strange marriage to make work, because if you entered, or let's say if I sat down and tried to write like 10 scary songs, that sounds like that's a dangerous footing, right? That sounds like that could be the cheesiest freaking thing ever. But there's a million awesome ways to do that, right? You could do like, what about just like murder ballads that were more like rather than murder tales, like ghost stories on your acoustic guitar, or and it doesn't have to be so horror. Whenever I go to like what do they call it? I guess it'd be like a horror convention around here, but it feels more of like a horror flea market, right? And it's all like Rob Zombie music playing, and I'm always thinking like there's other or there's other like quote unquote horror music, like I have a fantasy of of starting like my own horror convention where like when you walk in, it's like Vincent Price music, it's like Bernard Herrmann, like violins and like freaky, creepy, castle-y music that versus like, Insane Clown Posse or something, It's like just because someone wears makeup, that doesn't make this music like that's horror or something. But I do think that Alice Cooper he somehow pulled that off as good as you can do it. Now, because it's a while ago, it sounds a little like poppy to us, right? So, like, who would be doing that today? I don't know enough about that band Ghost. Do you guys know that band?
I'm a little familiar.
So I tried listening to them a little, and that almost felt like too emotional, like too dramatic to me or something, what I heard. But maybe I just don't know where to look, because I like truly a lot of different stuff. But I think it's like dangerous idea to sit down and attempt to write what would be like a horror album. But then the second after I said that a second ago, I was like, no, maybe it's not. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I've loved Alice Cooper since I was probably 10 years old, and some of, like you were talking, and I thought, all right, so some of it's horror, but I mean, he's got a toe tapping song about necrophilia. So
Yeah.
Cold Ethel is something that if you didn't listen to the words, you just tap your foot and kind of bob your head along to it, and if you really listen to it, you go, oh, holy shit, this is pretty dark. So I mean, I think there's a good mix. I mean, some other ones that came to mind. King Diamond is someone I listened to a lot when I was a teen. So
Yeah.
Merciful Fate and King Diamond, and it was all kind of very gothic. A little bit. I was thinking about it when you were talking about Castley music, right? If you had Castley metal, it would definitely be King Diamond, playing.
Yeah, I have Abigail. Is that what?
Yeah,
I have that one here on vinyl in my office.
Yeah. And then there's a song that and I'm gonna really out my emo self here, I think, which is embarrassing when you're almost 50. Senses Fail has a song called Buried Alive, which is a song about a guy who, I'm on the fence. I've listened to the song probably 1,000 times, and I've tried to, it's almost like a short story, and I'm trying to decide if the protagonist, I'll call him in this, is crazy or not. He believes that a friend of his was poisoned. So he actually digs up her body and tries to conduct his own autopsy. And I mean, what a great story that is to have in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And they're just they're a middle of the road emo band. If I'm being honest, they're not a great band, but what a great song. So there are ways that can manifest.
Yeah, you're totally right. When the High Strung were already on the road, but then I also then started writing novels. And whenever I had an idea for a short story, it became a song. And whenever I had an idea for a longer story, it was a novel. So when Bird Box came out, I had 0 short stories. None. And that's a very strange thing for a guy that had 14 novels or 15 novels or something.
Wow.
I had a couple maybe shorts that I tried in college, you know what I mean? But that sounded hilarious. Like I was experimental in college. A couple of shorts that I went with, but anyway, so
I experimented with short stories.
Yeah, I experimented. I did try to write an erotic story once, an erotica, and I got too turned on. I'm not even fucking around. I had to stop. I was like, this genre is not for me, man. I made it like 2 pages in, and I was like, nope, I'm done. No,
I can't write in this condition.
I can't write in this condition. Seriously, I was way too turned on. Okay, anyway. So in the early High Strung, or not even the early High Strung days, in the early finishing of the novels days, so there's a lot of High Strung songs that there's one about it's called Gravedigger, and it's about the night watchman of a cemetery who is bored and then starts rearranging all the names and dates on the tombstones, and then new names and like impossible dates are saying in the song, stuff like that. There's another one about like a museum curator who believes that his stuff is as good as anybody on the walls, so he he steals the keys and brings all of his own artwork in there, whatever. He like breaks into the joint, destroys all the great art, and puts up his own, and for one night he's on display for one night. And these were all like short stories, which actually stories that would make a lot of sense in like Goblin to me. A lot of these like songs. So I guess that's the closest I've ever come to combining those two worlds. But then I was asked by Doug Morano and D. Alexander Ward to contribute a story to Shadows Over Main Street. And I wrote for them a Fiddlehead Party on Carpenter's Farm, which I knew, I told you before, I think, which I knew would lead to Carpenter's Farm eventually. Mm-hmm. And once I wrote that one, I was like, oh, shit. Okay, and now I've got like a bunch of short stories.
See, I just sat back and let that whole music conversation happen because I'm not, I obviously not as well versed. But the one thing it made me think of was this. I'm just out of high school. I'm working in like a grocery store or whatever, and a guy I worked with wanted to introduce me to all of his favorite like really hardcore like metal / whatever type of music. And he gave me like a tape, like a mixtape, because that's how old I am. And the first song on the tape was the theme for the movie Halloween. And at first I was like, why is he putting this movie song on there? But then I was like, he thinks that this is hardcore enough to be like the introduction to this tape, and it made me kind of think about just like music for films differently, that they do have kind of a bigger life than just the thing you hear when you're watching a movie.
Yeah, that's interesting. The very first album I ever bought on my own was, well, I don't know about, I was on my own, was Nightmare on My Street, which was
Oh yeah.
yeah, that one, yeah. So
It scared the hell out of me when I was a kid.
But I also wanted to say real fast that Chad Lutsky, the writer, is the guy who made that Alice Cooper print. I just wanted to make sure that I said that in the in this, because he sent that to me as like a gift. With I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was like, like good luck with Malorie and that kind of thing, like a congratulations gift. And I'm gonna frame that thing, man, because it's badass.
Livius, I can't tell you how often Alice Cooper comes up with Livius, so like it's
I've seen Alice Cooper, I think it's 13 times. So basically almost every chance I can get, I go see Alice Cooper.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because I have like 6 of his albums. I have Billion Dollar Babies. I have obviously Welcome to Running Nightmare. I have what is the name of that? What's the one where his face is on the hand?
Raise Your Fist and Yell.
Yep,
I think
that one. What would be like is there like a like a sleeper? Like I have like more than 6 actually, I think. But
so
what
if you so the weirdest Alice Cooper album, I think, and I'm not saying it's the best, but if you want to hear Alice Cooper experimenting with stuff, Zipper Catches Skin.
That sounds
that might have been like 76 or 78. There's some
funny enough
interesting things on there.
That was the name of Josh's erotic story he started.
Oh shit, dude. I can't believe I told you guys that. My bandmates periodically would, like, my songwriting partner Mark would bring that up periodically. Remember when you tried to write a hot story? I'm like, shut up.
I mean, look, that genre is a moneymaker.
That is a moneymaker.
Sure.
I don't know how people get through it. They deserve all the money they make.
All right, I've got one idea.
Yeah, in short spurts.
Oh no.
Wow, yeah. Where's the? I'll put some that little drum.
Please do.
Wow. Yeah. No. It's. I am not. I am too naturally peaked of a dude to write that shit, man. But anyway.
All right, I'm going to jump us onto an entirely separate topic for no specific reason, but so we just closed out an excellent month of talking about amazing books. So we obviously we reviewed Malorie. We enjoyed that. We just did Stephen Graham Jones' The Only Good Indians, Paul Tremblay's The Survivor Song, and then we also did Wonderland by Zoya Stage. And I know that you mentioned at least Wonderland before, but like, what a crazy month to like have all these things come. And I know there's other stuff that I haven't mentioned. This is just the ones that we've talked about on the podcast. But like, thoughts on any of those things?
Yeah, I feel like if you got to include Mexican Gothic and Grady Hendrix's, I know his was like April. Right, but you guys reviewed that one, right? The
Southern Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires.
And then Max's Touch the Night, and We Need to Do Something, and I mean, there's obviously a million, but like you said, there's a gazillion. I don't know how to explain this other than to say it feels almost like Mallory's trying out for the Olympic team, and I really mean, I feel like the stakes have been raised. And I think that it's almost like when you hear about like Riley Sager's Home Before Dark in this group as well. I think that when you what's it called? Like let's say you were trying out for the Olympic tennis team, right? And you didn't make it. You just didn't make it or something. And then you're like that like, I guess the equivalent would be like the New York Times bestsellers. I don't even know exactly what the making it means. But my point is, like, even if you weren't like in the no. Like, okay, you're in the Olympics and you didn't medal. That's all. You just didn't get a medal, let's say.
Right.
But it's like, dude, you're in the fucking Olympics. Like your friend at the bar would be like, okay, I know you're complaining that you didn't get a medal in tennis, but like, dude, you're like, holy shit, tennis player, you're in the Olympics. And there's a feeling of that right now when I'm looking around at all these books coming out where it's like, oh shit, man, we're all at a different level right now. And I don't mean we're all at a different level in sales, although that's true too for a lot of us. And I don't mean that we're at a different level of fame or anything like that. It just feels like it feels like the ante has been raised or something. And everybody in the scene is like, this shit's getting like I don't know if it's possible to top 2020 in terms of horror releases of this. I maybe I'm wrong, and I know that there's going to be tons of more holy shit novels coming from all of us of this era and people we don't know the names of yet too. But I don't know that we're going to necessarily top 2020, and I don't know that we're going to top July of 2020, because this is, I'm just like, I feel it right now. I feel like I'm in like, like I don't know how to explain it. It's not pressure, but it's like, oh shit, like when a person makes it to the NBA or to the NFL, and then they'll always say like, oh, the game moves a lot faster there. And that's how it feels right now. It's like, oh shit, the game's moving fast right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm with you. Where you feel like I got to be on my game because I'm amongst like such talent.
Yeah, and then also there's even another sense of like, what's like, hey man, if me and Victor and Anya and Zoe and Paul and all these names, if we're all gonna like represent this era, well then let's fucking do it. Let's go for it. Let's not take that. I don't want to say it's a responsibility because that sounds a little fishy or something. John Langan, all these names, Blair Barron, there's a lot of them. I mean, there's like 60, 70 names. It's not four people or something. It's a lot. But there's also like, hey, we are this era, and there's some sense of like, well then let's fucking like let's kill it. Let's do it.
Publishing takes forever, so I will remind you that everybody is in a lockdown. So although I agree with you that July will be hard to top, like a year and a half from now or whatever that process is, we may see a very interesting conglomeration of books coming out just from people having nothing better to do, I guess.
Again, I mean, I know that I don't know if I'm expressing it right about what's it called, about this era. I don't know how to explain it right, and sports references seem silly or something, but all I can say is that like I feel like some people might be like, oh yes, it's very talented, and like okay, it's not just that. Like there's a moment going on, and I'm very aware of it, and I think that you guys are aware of it. That's why you're asking about it, and you know, I know Stephen Graham Jones is aware of it, and I know that like, I don't know, it's interesting. And then I'm working on a new one now, and you almost are starting to see it as like, and remember, thank God I have like 20 others like already written in this office. But it's like you almost start to feel like this next book, whether it Stephen's next book, whether it's good or bad, whatever, it's part of this era.
Right.
And that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I feel like there was an uptick in general. 2018 was a pretty damn good year, and then last year was really like a start of some momentum, but like 2020 is just it's its own animal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be it's gonna look interesting down the road, that's for sure. One thing, Brian Keane in 2016 said, he wasn't saying this as an endorsement of Trump, obviously, Jesus Christ, but he was saying that every time there's a Republican in office, horror does really, really well. And he wrote that in 2016 when Trump won. And then he said it again in an online event. I can't remember exactly what it was right now. Damn it. But it was online, and he was live on, and he was talking about that, how for whatever reason, if you go looking through history, like Reagan was president in the 80s, and you start like going through the history of horror, and then Bush was president when The Rising came out, and you start going through like the history of horror, you're like, oh shit, dude, you're right. And I don't think there could be a more, extreme, like, what the fuck's going on, Republican administration is right now, and it's coinciding with holy shit, I don't know if there could be a more intense month in horror. It's interesting.
That is interesting.
Whatever Brian's talking about, there's a link there that I wish he was. If you're going to talk to him soon, ask him about it. But he's definitely right. There's something to that, and I don't know exactly what it is.
All right. Before we head over to spoiler questions, our newest segment that we're playing with, what are we likely to see next from you, Josh?
Well, so a hardcover of A House at the Bottom of the Lake is coming out in October. Then
nice.
A hardcover of Goblin is coming out in the spring of next year. And then in around this time next year is supposed to be another book that I have already sold to Del Rey. But I'm just writing this other one for no reason right now. As you guys know, I am, I often do. And I'm really, really, really thinking that this might be that or something. So that's what it is, though. It's a house at the bottom of a lake, Goblin, and then a new one about this time next year, a new novel.
I like the pace of that. People don't have to wait too much longer till they get more stuff from you. We're going to thank you for joining us for this interview. Obviously, we're going to jump over and talk a little bit spoilers in our Patreon. But thanks so much for joining us. It's always like the best time talking to you about books and stuff.
Yeah, same to you guys. I freaking love it. I feel like you guys set me in a good space at the beginning of this when you were like, yeah, it could be laid back. You don't have to be at 9. I think I ended up going up to 9 anyway, but it was nice to be told that I didn't have to or something. So thanks for that.
And I hope you guys will all agree that, as promised, what a fantastic interview that was.
Yeah, one of the things I love about talking to Josh is that we know that the stuff that we've planned to talk about is going to go well, but there's also going to be extra other stuff. And that extra other stuff is always charming and fun and just a great time. And we definitely got plenty of that this time.
For sure. I'm pretty sure I know what's going to be next, so I'm going to just go ahead and say it. Stephen Graham Jones interview, because why not read the 4 amazing books that came out in July and then interview the 4 amazing authors that wrote them? I mean, that seems like a natural thing to do. So next up, interview with Stephen Graham Jones, where we'll be discussing The Only Good Indians and likely Night of the Mannequins. Don't forget, please, please, please like this podcast wherever you're listening, comment, subscribe, whatever it is on whatever platform. Completely helps us out, completely helps us lure in other great guests like Josh Malerman.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Join us soon for Stephen Graham Jones. Till then, I'm Rob Olson.
And I'm Livius Nedden. Keep reading.